Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Bow Wow Bill live stream. I have the beautiful Cheryl Ross joining us. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello. Thank you for
Ross.
having me.
You're very welcome, Cheryl Ross, the dog boss.
You know it.
She's actually one of my neighbors up here,
Yes.
and she stole one of my, no, she hid one of my cases at the IACP show.
Yep.
So she's a turkey.
Well, you left it unattended, so
I did leave it unattended, but I knew exactly where it was, man. And I came back there and I was like, okay, either I'm getting really old or somebody hid it from me. So,
well, and you came right to me, and I can't lie very well. Like, it's all over my face. So,
yeah, I knew it, man. I'm like, where'd you put it? And you're just like, shouldn't leave it unattended.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining me. And that was at the IACP event. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. That was my first time going to conference, so it was an experience. But I was helping Nelson with his booth, so I didn't get to see a lot of the speakers, but I still had a really great time meeting a lot of people and making connections, and it was good.
I'm hiding my stuff.
Hiding your stuff. Yeah.
How soon we forget. So I'm going to share this really quick. I'm going to share it to Dogs Chatting. I'm going to share it to Triple R and my personal page as well. And while I do that, do you want to do a quick bio? Tell everybody where you're from and what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so the company that I own is Take the Lead Dog Training, and I'm based here in the Seattle area. Technically, it's Maple Valley, a little bit southeast of Seattle, and about an hour and a half south of Bill in Arlington.
No traffic.
With no traffic, yes, it can be a little bit more like 2 hours.
Much more.
So currently I specialize in reactive dogs and aggressive rehabilitation, and really enjoy working with those dogs. So doing a mixture of obedience work and behavioral modification, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit more into that during the interview. But my personal dogs, I have 3 dogs currently. I have a Doberman Pinscher named Duke, and a boxer named Freya, and then I have a little Min Pin Chihuahua mix that was surrendered to me a couple years ago named Stewie. So he's been a fun little addition to the pack. But it's been really cool. I've learned a lot about having multiple dogs and using them to help rehabilitate my clients' dogs. And that's been a really great learning experience for me over the last few years. So
What initially got you interested in working with dogs?
So this goes way back then. Ever since I was a kid, I was always more drawn to animals than socializing with people. I was very much an introvert, shy, awkward child. And our first dog that our family ever had was a Black Lab Chow mix, and we lived in Wyoming at the time. My brother was the one who took him through the 4-H training, and I just got to watch some of that, and I loved just spending time with him. And so that was kind of, I guess, where my social outlet started, was with dogs and just having that connection and feeling like when I was with dogs, that was the only time I really felt comfortable, fully seen, and just accepted. So that was kind of the starting point. And then when I was about 13 or 14, I got my first dog, which was a golden retriever. And I had the intention of doing agility with him. And so that was where things really started piquing my interest with training, was my experience through that. So for several years, I was taking agility classes, and I did some competing, earned him some titles. And it was just a really fun introduction to the training world. There was a lot of like clickers and treats and, positive only approach. And it was just a good time. And it gave me purpose with my dog. So that was something that I always really loved. And then I guess, kind of throughout my life. Graduated high school, went to college. Parents kept the dog as I started traveling around a little bit. It's kind of how life goes sometimes. And then I got married, and when Jordan and I moved to Florida for a few years, we decided to get Duke, our Doberman, and but it had been several years since I'd had a dog, so there was kind of a big gap from my teenage years to early 20s when I didn't have a dog. And after we moved to Florida, that was kind of a fresh start for both my husband and I. And we were like, well, what do we want to do with our lives? Like, what careers do we want to have? And that's where I kind of went back to wanting to work with dogs again. And of course, growing up, everyone's like, oh, are you going to be a veterinarian? Because you just love animals. And I was like, no, I don't want to deal with the medical side of things. But behavior always fascinated me. And so I kind of how I got into dog training from that point was I literally opened up a phone book and searched for dog trainers, and I called up different dog trainers, and the only one that answered the phone told me that if I went to National Canine School for Dog Trainers up in Ohio and graduated and got certified through their program, that he would hire me. So that's what I did. I went to National Canine and graduated their Master Dog Trainer program, went back to Florida and worked for that company for a couple years. And that was a really great introduction to kind of the training world for me as a professional. So,
really quick, we got people joining us. We have Sarah Baker from Baker's Acres. She says hello, and she also says, same here, Cheryl. We competed in agility for years. I started with my Sheltie and Jack Russell Terrier, learning from the great Susan Garrett and many more. And she also says, LOL, I hate medical stuff. Me too, man. Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
That's not how my brain goes to the medical stuff.
It works better for me with the dogs than people. Like, I can deal with dogs much better than I could with people, But even talking to my vet friends, they tell me, no, dude, it's totally different world than what you're doing, and keep up what you're doing, Bill. And I think that a lot of times in the medical too, they're pretty limited. They have a compartmentalized view of the solutions that are available, and I think that it's important for us to network with people in that, because a lot of times they are school taught and they have their hands tied. I say a lot of times they recommend just hills and pills. Hill science diet or pills to curb this behavior, instead of taking a whole view of the dog's life and activity level, diet, stress, many different factors that are contributing to what we see as the behavior that we're trying to curb. And you're absolutely correct. It's a totally different mindset, as dog trainers. That's what Sarah Baker says. And Sarah Baker, I'm going to have her on here pretty soon. We've been chatting. Awesome. As dog trainers, we're educators, and that's exactly it.
Well, and along that, I think it's very important that as educators that we are continually educating ourselves, which is huge, because there was a time earlier on in my career where I felt like I was pretty darn close to knowing everything. I kind of had a bit of that ego attitude very early on in my career, where I was like, I know what I'm doing. I can fix every problem, like whatever. And now I'm like, the more I learn, the more I know I don't know. And so I am a huge advocate for being a lifelong learner, and it being okay to say, I don't know, but I will find out.
Or I was wrong. I tell people the three words, the most powerful words that we can say as an individual, not just in the dog training world, but, as an individual, is like, look at and stop and say, oh my gosh, I was wrong. and I need to take action to correct this and make it right because now I see. And once we know better, it's our obligation to take that correct path, especially when we are higher consciousness being and we're directing a lower consciousness being into our world. We
Mm-hmm.
do whatever it takes to be stewards of these animals so that they are just as fulfilled with our relationship as we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also say, once you're stuck in a philosophy, you're kind of dead in the water, just waiting for that dog to kind of capsize your boat.
Right. Yeah. And that is something that I experienced, going back to my first real exposure to dog training was clickers and treats in the agility world. And it was great. But my golden retriever that I had was poorly mannered. He pulled on the leash. He jumped up on me when he was too excited. And I couldn't get that to stop because I was supposed to ignore it and hope that it went away. And that was I was literally told in that world, don't say no to your dog. That's going to scar them emotionally. And so I was like, okay. And they're like, just give him lots of treats when he's sitting nicely or that kind of thing. And that will promote that behavior. And for a long time, I was like, this is how it is. And this is how it should be. I mean, it makes sense to be nice to your dog and it makes sense to reward the good behaviors. And of course, I don't want to hurt my dog. I love my dog.
It doesn't feel good to say no or to put up boundaries, man. It just doesn't. Sometimes it's a little. I don't know. You feel like a bully, or.
Especially when you have a community around you that supports that mentality. And so if you do something different, you're kind of shamed or called out sometimes, and to different levels or extents. Sometimes it's just a look, and other times it's a comment, and sometimes it's full on bullying. But so when I went from that sort of mentality of the agility world, the clickers and treats, to National Canine School for Dog Trainers, which is a little bit more on the old school side of things, there was for sure a culture shock for me because I was like, oh my gosh, we're using choke chains. Oh my gosh, we're using prong collars and e-collars. Like I literally remember watching the trainers demonstrate how to use e-collars and my heart was pounding because I was like, this isn't right because of the previous exposure that I had to training. But when I saw them working with these dogs and being able to adjust the behavior and work with them and achieve results that I couldn't get
Right.
with treats, I was like, okay, there's got to be something to this. So I was open to learning. I was open to seeing what they had to teach and what they had to say. And there was a lot of really great foundational stuff that I learned through National Canine. Even down to, I remember just being mind blown of like, oh my gosh, there's a proper way to hold a leash. Like, whoa, I never would have thought about the simple things, but it makes such a difference. But it was a huge gap between my first exposure to training to National Canine. And I think later on, after I trained the National Canine Way for 2 to 3 years, I really started seeking out more of the balanced approach because I felt like there has to be an in-between. It can't be all treats and it can't be no treats and all correction. There has to be something in between. And so I started going to some workshops and seminars. And at that point in my life, I found Ted Eftimiadis and started following him and his work and what he did with e-collars and food work and that balanced approach. And I was like, okay, this is kind of what I'm looking for. And so I went and shadowed Ted for a couple weeks up in Halifax and learned from him. And so I really incorporated a lot of the things that he does into my work for the last few years. And I was seeing some really good results, and it just felt better. Like it felt like this was part of that balance that I was looking for. And
close the gaps, and that's it. Like whenever we close those gaps, you kind of get this sense of calmness because now when things are connected and things start to make sense, and you're like, oh, I get it. And you can
Yeah.
see that aha moment with us, and you can see the aha moment with the dogs too. And and
Hmm.
just like what you were saying, like it's not all corrections or it's not all positives, but we also have to look at that individual dog too. And sometimes dogs are going to take, 75% of, a little bit more of a assertive handler. And then once they get to that point, then it's that reinforcement where some dogs are super soft and they need a really, really good positive reinforcement the whole way through. Hold on one second, let me shut my door so my phone doesn't bug me. And that's what's important, to have an eclectic knowledge base, and that's what we were chatting about earlier too, about mentors and about just having that. I don't know, being humble
Yeah.
enough, and
Yeah.
just saying, hey, look, I don't know it all. And Jay said something when you said, I thought I knew it. I thought I knew it all started out. And she says, young people do that more, I think. And I agree with her. A
Sure.
lot of expectations are as we go into this new arena, and uh, we are all of a sudden considered to be an expert. Sometimes you have to
Yeah.
fake it until you make it, and that could be detrimental, I think, especially if you take on cases that you're not ready for, and
Yeah.
you can make the situation worse.
Well,
And
and on that note, I will say I have taken cases throughout my career that are stretching my skill set, but I am always honest with the owners and I let them know like where I'm at, and that, I've not worked with a case this extreme before. If you still want to work with me, I'm willing to put forth the time and the effort. And typically when I do that, I give above and beyond with my time and effort that I typically would with a case that a type of case that I've handled before. But kind of segueing that into like the mentor comment, I've had many mentors throughout my career the several years, and from business coaches to, like shadowing professionals like Ted, and Nelson Hodges has been the most recent and probably the longest mentor that I've had yet so far. And he's kind of the one for me that took it from training tools and methods and techniques to back to like, let's just understand what a dog is and how to connect on a relationship level. And kind of putting the dogs aside for a moment, taking a good look at yourself and who
mm,
you are and how you show up, not just with the dogs, but with your clients as well. And it's so easy. I mean, I got into this career initially because I was like, I don't like interacting with people. I just want to work with dogs. I love dogs.
we hear
And
that a bunch.
now it's shifting for me. The last couple of years, I've been like, I'm actually feeling more drawn to coaching people because that's what's needed. Yes, you still need to work with the dogs, but I have so much more compassion and so much more of a heart for the human end of the leash now than ever before. And a big part of that has been, a couple years ago when I went to Nelson's RBBM workshop, his 3-day workshop. I had never heard of him before. And what he was teaching, some of these like basic foundational things about dogs and body language and the relationship dynamic, and sort of putting the tools aside, it blew my mind. And I was like, okay, this is the next level deeper that is missing from a lot of training programs or training approaches. And it really was fascinating to me how I allowed myself to go a little bit more introspective and figuring out like, why am I feeling comfortable in this method or this approach? And for me, it kind of went back to how I was raised as a child and the type of mentality I was raised in. And I had some personal breakthroughs with kind of really being able to process through like, why am I training this way? And being open to seeing things from a different perspective. And that's hard for a lot of people, is to be open to other perspectives, because in this industry, it's really, sometimes you feel like you have to be seen as super confident and I know everything, I know what I'm doing. And to be open to that shift And to that perspective change is really challenging, but it's very powerful when you can do that. So,
Well, I mean, look back to when you first started working with dogs, and the first few words that you said when before you worked with dogs is that one, you were shy and you were awkward, and that
yeah,
the dog was an amazing social outlet, right?
yeah,
This dog gave you confidence because when you walked into the world, the people didn't just see you, and sometimes they didn't see you first; they saw your dog, and that gave you a second to just kind of gauge that situation and where that focus wasn't solely on you, right?
mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of times this kind of transmutes, and then we start to get into this purely positive network of group. And then if you were already shy and awkward socially, and now we're into this group that is really, really reinforcing this type of mentality,
Yeah,
you're right. It is hard. It is hard to say to stop and be like, okay, something's not right here. Like these dogs are, they're good on the course, just like Sarah Baker says, my ability dogs are horribly behaved, always wound up, terrible manners, and massive aggression issues. And that's it. A lot of times this is like managed chaos. We give these dogs an outlet to go perform. And once they do it, then we want them to do it faster. And we
mm-hmm.
want them to do it, with more gusto. And then that sometimes correlates to some aggression issues or reactivity, or right, because the dog's kind of wild and we want that. Sarah Baker says a closed mind can't learn, a closed fist can't receive.
Awesome. Love that.
Awesome. Yep. And we got Greg Van Kuren joining us. Hey man, look,
Awesome.
we got my new Collar Got Freedom shirt sent me. We were just down in Florida together. Love you, Greg. You're the man. A great product. Let me do a quick shout out for ecollar.com. Right here.
Repping the brand.
That's what we like. We use the eCollar brand.
Yep.
And they're making a bunch of different innovations and advancements to that product always. Gerard says every dog is unique. Using what works for the dog simply makes sense. Boom.
Yep.
That's it. And that's our job as professionals here, is to find out what makes sense to that dog. And we're working with the dog at the end of the leash. You're not working with the dog you worked with 2 weeks ago. You're working with that dog in that moment. And every dog is an individual. And every dog, just like Nelson says, that dog's wants and desires are just important to that animal as your wants and desires are to you. Okay. And to deny them that, imagine what that would feel like to you as well. Have to train those owners. Love the term coaching. That is what it is all about. I agree 100%. In fact, I agree so much. I own dogcoach.com and dog coaching and all that stuff.
Domains, Bill.
I invested a bunch of domains, but I want to make something out of the dogcoach.com. I hung up the project for a while, but I'm thinking about bringing it back down, making a nice network of vetted trainers that can really, really help make a difference in the world. So keep an eye on the pipeline for that. Very true, Bill. Dogs help us open up and become social. That's right. Can't say enough about eCollar Technologies. Open up your own perspective, the dog's perspective, and the owner's perspective.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent comments, you guys. And if you have any questions for Cheryl or I, just go ahead and type them down below. And thank you so much for joining us. And I know a lot of people like to watch this live. So if you wouldn't mind hitting that share button, just getting it out there, so anybody that wants to can interact. And this is great stuff, man. And Cheryl, how long have you been in the industry now today?
So I qualify my professional time in the industry as when I graduated from National Canine, because before that it was really just kind of, I was a pet owner that was dabbling in training. But so I graduated from National Canine in early 2011, and I jumped right into a full-time position as a trainer with a company in Florida right after that. So 7 years, coming up on 8-ish. So less than a decade, which I know is still new-ish. But I feel like I have accomplished quite a bit in that time, because I have kind of experienced full spectrum of the different approaches, positive only, old school, balanced, and then behavior modification with Nelson Hodges. And so I feel like even in that short amount of time, I have a fairly well-rounded experience base. but I'm constantly still learning. And every dog that I get in, I mean, almost every dog I get in, I feel like I learn little tiny things that I hadn't experienced before, which I love. So, but I think that having the mindset of constantly learning and being open to learning is super important. And um, the mentorship aspect is something that I really kind of want to like hit on for a second, because from the time, so when I started working for that company in Florida, I think I worked for them for about 2 years before I started my own. And then when I started my own, it was kind of, I just like fumbled around a little bit until I figured it out. And then I was, of course, wearing all the hats. I was the, business owner, the office manager, the dog trainer, the scheduler, like everything. And I was fairly successful from my own perspective at that point. But then I kind of, my business plateaued a bit, and I was like, I felt stuck. I didn't know how to progress forward. And so there was a point in time where I was like, I need to be doing better with the business side of things. So I invested in hiring a business trainer, which was a huge decision for me because it was a massive financial commitment at that point in my life. It was scary, but she in 1 year she almost tripled my income with the help that she gave me, the mentoring, the coaching that she offered me.
Was she a dog business specialist, or was she business overall?
She had never worked with a dog trainer before, but she coaches other businesses. And that was something that was also a little bit scary. Like, I was going to business networking groups, and she had presented a 15-minute presentation, and I liked what she had to say, and she was offering a free phone call consultation, and I was like, why not? Maybe I'll learn something in that free phone call. And she really utilized that time really well and was asking about my business and what my goals were. And she was like, I've never worked with a dog trainer before, but the structure of your business is almost identical to some of these other companies that I've worked with. And she's like, I know I can help you. And I was like, okay, all right, let's do this. And it was a huge shift, confidence booster as well, because she didn't just tell me, do this, this, and this with your business. She gave me homework for, one of the things I'll always remember was this little mini course on your money mindset. And I had a lot of things blocking myself on how I perceived money and what was okay with money, what was not okay. And I was awkward with money, and my own ability to feel like I had earned the money that I was working for.
Yeah, you're worthy.
My worth, yeah. And that was a massive for me. So she was very pivotal. Her name is Jessica Riverson. She's also located here in the Seattle area. But
do you know a website or anything? I can maybe do a shout out.
.com.
What is it?
JessicaRiverson.com.
Jessica Riverson. Let's see. .com. Yeah. Hopefully this is it. Jessica Riverson. So shout out for
business coach that I hired. And she was awesome.
That is absolutely crucial. I mean, people, you don't know what you don't know, folks. And we have already a set neural construction comfort zone with so many things. And that's what we do with behavior as trainers and whatnot. We work with behaviors. We work at expanding these comfort zones. We work at showing a different form of what's possible. And sometimes you need help from people like that. And you need help from people that have achieved what you're looking to achieve. And I did the same thing, Cheryl. I hired a business coach. I went to, the movie The Secret with Rhonda. Yeah, it was an old movie about, the law of attraction and stuff. And that was way back in like 2007. And one of the guys on that movie really resounded with me, a guy named John Assaraf. And I sought him out, man, and I hired him, and he was expensive as heck, dude. Like, I took out loans, and my wife is like, what the heck are you doing? But I decided to do whatever it takes to be a success, and to know that I don't know this stuff, and I need to humble myself and to learn and to really, really do what these guys say, not just do what's convenient, but do whatever it takes. And to do the work on your own mindset is
Yep.
huge, because if you look around, just take a second and look around your room. Every single thing that you see that was created by a man started up here in the mind first, right? And so there's a saying that as above, so below, as within, so without. And this world acts on our intent, and we have to get clear that our mind is a very powerful tool, but our mind has a mind of its own. I tell people,
Yeah.
there's a homeostasis factor where our body has to stay at 98.6 degrees. We have a lot of different functions, excretory, digestive, nervous, like all this stuff that is always going on. And thank God I'm not aware of it, or the enteric nervous system down in your belly, the second brain that they talk about, where it's our body is a wonderful, marvelous piece of technology, biotech that, we also have to realize that there's a part of our brain, or there's a part of us that is separate from the brain. There's that awareness,
Yeah.
right? And that awareness is what we take and use to expand our comfort zone. And when we feel this doubts, fears, anxieties, we realize that that is normal. And we don't balk. We don't stop just because it feels uncomfortable. We keep our eye on the big prize. And sometimes we have our mentors that are right there with us, being like, dude, I know you're
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but you need to keep it going, and you need to keep, regardless of what's happening, do whatever it takes. And so they're very, very important.
The one thing that just came up for me as you were talking about that, and again mentioned the mentors, is something that Nelson told me fairly early on in kind of our mentorship relationship. He's such a humble guy, and he was just saying, I'm just farther along on the path, yelling back to you, telling you where the potholes are, watch your step, there's one coming up. And I was like, that's amazing. I love that perspective of, I might just be a few steps ahead of you in the path of life, or in this career path, or whatever it might be. And that's the heart of mentorship that I like to have, and that I like to take. And that's kind of what I try to embody when I work with my clients. Is I'm just a human too. I love dogs. I own dogs. You're a pet owner. I was just a pet owner once. It just happens to be that I have invested my life into learning about dog behaviors. So I'm farther along the path than you are. And I'm just pointing back saying, watch out for that pothole as you're working with your dog, living with your dog. And to me, that was just such a beautiful concept or analogy of what mentorship is.
Yeah. Nobody has a lockdown on this knowledge. And not only that, but what is the goal? We are here to help people get along with their dogs. We are here to help dogs live a more fulfilled life. We are here to put a dent in the numbers of dogs that are being euthanized every year for behavioral issues. We're also here to put a dent in the child bite statistics that are happening because of ill education or just misconception of what a relationship with that animal is supposed to be like. And you're absolutely right. We have taken and traded our lives to help educate people. But I also tell people, you know what? I'm not the expert. This little girl back here, I don't know if you can see her laying, using away, taking over my seat, is our expert. These dogs are going to tell you if what I'm doing is right or wrong with their behavior. And, when that's what happened with me with purely positives. And not only that, but after watching Ivan's, like I got this bad boy too, don't shoot the dog
Nice.
right there, and I read it all, man. There's pearls everywhere. There's pearls everywhere, man. And there's something in here that I will use, if not a bunch of stuff that is wonderful. Good to get the perspective. And like you said, watch out for the potholes. I call it borrowing scars, because I have scars in my hands of dogs that have bitten me.
Yeah.
And if you can borrow somebody's scars based on their experience and their bad experience, we have just turned that bad experience into a golden experience, because now somebody else has learned from it. And so we've transmuted that. And that's another goal as our network of professionals. And also one of my goals of just having these talks is just sitting down. And there was an old saying in the dog industry is that if you get 2 dog or 3 dog trainers in a room, the only thing that 2 of them will agree on is that the third one is wrong.
Right.
I want to put a stop to that.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that if more people could do that, and again, I think it kind of comes down to some humility and some openness to hearing other perspectives without becoming reactive internally, right? Like we all have our own stuff that we need to work on. And that's something that I have through my journey of life, not only as a trainer, but my personal growth over the last several years is figuring out what are my triggers, from my shit growing up and my life experience that I need to work through. Because when someone says something from their perspective, if I feel this like need to be reactive or need to like want to jump on that or correct them, like where is that coming from in me and why is that there? And I think that piece is something that I wish more people were comfortable with facing, because it takes a lot of courage, I think, to really sit down and face those things. But I think just having dialogue about it is helpful, and like what you're doing with these, just having these conversations and hearing other perspectives and knowing that everybody has something that we can learn from each other. And if we're
something
just
to teach each other too,
Yeah. I mean, if we were all the same, then life would be pretty boring. So
yeah. And it's important to know that it's not what happens to you, but how we respond to it. And one of my favorite authors ever is Viktor Frankl, and his book, A Man's Search for Meaning. It talks about how his time in the concentration camps and how he made it through it. And looks like we have a special guest coming on here pretty soon. But I just put up a link to the Amazon page of that book, Viktor Frankl, Search for Meaning. And then a quote that comes to mind, like what you're saying about with the dogs, what we do, and also with us is between stimulus and response. So between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. Mm-hmm. And in that space is our power to choose our response, right? Yes. In our response lies our growth and freedom. And I tell people that I'm trying to just open up that gap between stimulus, and right now we're in reactivity, right? Instead of response. I want to open it up and to get a response, not a reaction. And, with that being said, we have Nelson Hodges joining us. I'm going to bring him on board and let you chat with him a little bit here. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Nelson Hodges. How you doing, buddy?
Good. By the way, I'm not a myth. I'm a myther.
Oh my.
A myther.
That's right.
All right, myther Hodges.
Yep. Sorry. I am driving at 70 miles an hour, trying to keep from killing myself or anyone else. So, hello.
Okay.
Hello. Yes, there he goes. Multitasking here. Jay was just talking.
Hello, dog daughter, the lovely Cheryl.
Hello, dog father.
Dog father, dog daughter.
He's my dog father.
So Jay has a great point, you guys. She just says, we were just talking about this at our club. She does IPO up in Alaska. Some are using each other's strengths to help each other. Some people might get their feelings hurt, not getting picked because they have less skill, is an example. But we are not trying to do anything but build everyone else's skills.
Yeah.
Is that what you do, Nelson? We were just chatting about something that you said to Cheryl, and I'm going to let you two talk here for 1 second. But she was talking about how when she was learning from you, actually, why don't you chat with him just for a little bit? I'm gonna step out here, and then I'll be right back, you guys. Okay?
All right. So what we were talking about is that time, Nelson, when you told me that as a mentor, you're just farther along on the path, and
yes.
You're turning back and just kind of letting me know where the potholes are. And we were talking a lot about mentorship and the importance of that, and and how I just really appreciated that perspective and how it came, where it came from.
I see. Well, I have a lot of different backgrounds, as you well know. One of them is uh, training and teaching martial arts, hand-to-hand combat, actual combat, things like that, to a lot of military, law enforcement, federal agencies, etc. But also in a traditional Japanese martial art, a real one, a combat oriented, not a sport and not a commercial system. Um, I learned that my goal was, as an instructor, to make everybody better than me, give them the opportunity to see where they could take themselves. It isn't about them becoming something that I am or anyone else is. It's about them. It's about helping them to see what they can do. So it really is the path itself, because there is no end goal. If you have an end goal and you reach it, what then? What's after that? So it really is about the pursuit of, you know, I tell people I want to inspire them so they have a thirst, a passion for knowledge. It doesn't matter where that knowledge comes from. It takes things their own way, different personalities, the way their brain works, etc. And so all I can do as an instructor, a teacher, a professor, is to provide the information in certain ways. And sometimes you provide the same information in a number of different ways to reach different people, different personalities. And sometimes it takes hitting people upside the head, and sometimes it takes just a slight cajoling. So that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that what you're saying too is that it's not the destination; it's the journey that's the goal. You know, and you know,
What's the destination? What happens when you get there? Your perspective has changed by getting there, so your goals mean nothing.
Mm. So how do you structure it where you are always on that journey? I mean,
you have yeah. Until you know it, you don't know what you don't know. And so once you get to a certain point of knowledge, from that point on, your perspective is entirely different. You are a different person approaching that also. So your goal must change. If your goal is about money, and money is a finite, fixed thing, that's the wrong goal, because you'll miss everything else.
yeah. Well, and I think that, you know, a lot of people, that's what they chase after, you know, and not realizing that,
Yes.
you know, you're going to change, man. Just like Cheryl was saying earlier about how when she first started this, how she thought she knew it all that stuff. But now, and even as we get older and more time that I'm in this, the more I realize I don't know squat, and I love it. And I love it.
You are always at a beginning point. Always. Is not determined, at least not by our universe, the one we live in. So whatever happens in the future, how can you possibly know everything to come? How can you think that you don't know yet?
Well, I mean,
Science, probably reading science book 60, and I was actually reading my father's college textbooks from the 1930s, going, well, that's not what we're being taught now. And about, you know, and as I go along in life and continue studying different sciences and looking at the discoveries and our understanding of things, it is always, well, we absolutely know it now. And I've turned on its head, going, nope, that was diametrically opposed. Boy, we sure were stupid idiots then. So you can never know it all.
I mean, look at the universe. Like if we even look at the word universe, right? Uni is one, like
Yep.
you in a cycle, and then versare is change. And so we live in the one change. And so we're always at a beginning point, waiting for that one change to happen. The constant. What is the one constant here? Is change.
Always, always.
You know,
Things is adapt and survive. If you're not able to adapt to the next second, you won't survive very well.
yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but look at, and I tell people, how long can you eat or live without food?
Well, actually, a long time.
Yeah, about a month and a half,
But
even.
only about that's about it. Yeah.
Well, how long can you live without water?
About 3 days, and then you start shutting down.
How long can you live without breath?
Well, that's a good one. About 2 minutes if you know how to hold your breath well.
But even then, I mean, we have 2 minutes. Like this stuff has to happen. Like and that is inspiration, right? When we take in and that's what happens when we are inspired, is that we can feel that breath, that involuntary, oh wow, And that I just think that kind of reiterates the point that you're making, Nelson, is that we're living with a couple minutes of given time. Once we take a breath, that next
Yeah.
breath is not guaranteed, but it
Yeah.
really puts it in a perspective of how fragile life is and what is important in life.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
what comes up for me when I hear you say that is like I feel like dogs live in that present moment, and that is something that as humans tend to really forget is being present in the now, and that is a big divide in our trying to relate to the dogs, and that is something that I strive to learn from the dogs every day. They're my constant reminders to be present in this moment right now and appreciate being alive, being in nature, and just being. And I think that's a huge lesson that we can learn from the dogs, and just being grateful for that breath that we have right now.
Absolutely. Nelson.
Exercise I created years ago was to help people to just live in that moment with the dog. It wasn't so much the 10 or 15-minute exercise, it was the state of mind that you have to be in to understand and join a dog and frankly complacent with you. And I don't mean that in a static sense, but uh, be able to be trusted because of your intent and joining them in their world. So everything that I do in certainly in workshops and in the courses that I teach are to try to emulate or replicate the state of mind of the dog while you're working with dogs, and you become instantly trustworthy. And in that way, you can reach the dog very easily. Now, it was interesting. I think the that I did at your place, Bill, what, 2.5, 3 years ago, and
Yeah.
Cheryl was there. Um, you know, I think that was one of the first ones that I'd ever had that had about an hour ahead of time instead of behind time on Sunday. And I remember um, asking, what do you guys want to do? What do you want to see? And Cheryl was one of those. A couple of people said, well, we just want to see you work a dog. And I
Yes.
said, you won't see anything. It's all, it's between the dog and I. It's not for display. And that's a concept seems to be lost these days, especially with those out there trying to promote themselves as to how great they are in telling a dog what to do and how to do it.
But
And
Nelson,
they're missing the point.
what we
Okay.
did see when you took one of the dogs and went to connect with it was
Yeah.
you running around, rolling around, frolicking around the field with the dog. And it was really eye-opening and fascinating, like as well as hilarious to see. But it was a moment where it really what at least I don't know what everybody else thought, but I could see you joining the dog in their world and having that connection. And it was something that I had never really seen an adult human do with a dog before in front of a crowd of people.
Yeah, that's because I didn't care about the people. It was all about,
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to show you guys anything. I was trying to reach the dog, and actually, that was a wolf dog, if I remember. That was Jody
Yes.
Woolard's wolf
Yes.
dog,
Yep.
who was terrified of humans and especially males. And she and I made a great connection instantly.
Yep.
But
Yeah, it
Yep.
was a really cool thing. And
I
it
think
wasn't not about here's how you hold the leash or use this tool or use this piece of food or position your body this
Yeah.
way. It was just
Because
about connection.
yeah, because I don't want anything between me and the dog, and I don't want to be a Pez dispenser to the dog, spitting out little. That's a
huh.
bribe. It doesn't really connect me with the dog.
Yeah.
Well, I
It
think that
connects me with it as a Pez dispenser.
yeah,
Tools. I
the
know
dog
I'm
will.
being away. That's something, but the dog knows it's the tool.
Yeah. Well, I think that what you teach, Nelson, is a huge.
Sometimes you can be a tool.
Well, I think that it's a huge component that's missing out of the philosophy of a
Okay.
lot of people is that actual motives, the
Yeah.
actual biology. We talk about like Saggio crest. We talk about the dog being a predator and then predator
Yes.
mindset. All of this stuff. Like when I first heard Nelson, I was like, why the hell didn't I know this stuff? Why the hell wasn't this stuff taught to me before? Because like what we were saying earlier about how when you close these gaps and you get something and oh, this connects to that and this connects to that, you calm down because now you know why
Exactly.
and you know what is.
Mm-hmm.
So knowledge, intelligence is different than knowledge. Obviously, now you have to gain intelligence first, and then you get experience and gain the knowledge from what that intellect means. But you don't have the if you don't have the intellect first, learn the 100%, gain the knowledge from it, and and the perspective that it has every variable on everything. Knowledge is kind of all of the variant rather than evaluate each variable over of what's about to happen and what's going on and what the result of that thing was, the experience of the intellect. So that's just how our brains work. And then you're kind of starting from behind.
Well, and if you're not even aware of that too, like what you were saying, we don't know what we don't know, and a lot of people are their brain is taking them for a ride, man.
Yes, and human brains are very odd because we are always in our own mind. We're not in nature, so we can't even join the dog.
So,
Had a North Texas Dog Pros get together last night at my center, and we had close to 30 people, I think, come out, and probably that many dogs. No issues, no nothing. We had some pretty iffy dogs that have been very iffy in the past come out. Everybody got along. Um, Most everybody were trainers. There were a few people who run daycares and stuff like that, but uh, several of the dogs that came had been very recently had been very I'll say uncertain. I won't say necessarily reactive, but at at a certain points reactive to humans. They all did great. Everybody did well. But one dog that came, Fran brought Tasha, and I was allowed to actually name Tasha. I had just lost one of my dogs named Tasha when they came to me for help. Tasha was a literally feral animal, born in the wild, leader of a pack of 15 wild animals, dogs, and I guess they had captured her. Unfortunately, when the animal control locally had cattle dart
Oh no, cow.
Cattle prod, maybe.
her in her shoulder blade, and uh,
You're breaking up really bad,
escaped. So
Nelson.
she had the
Oh, you might have to
6 years on.
technology.
So
Nelson, you're
now
breaking up super bad, dude.
I need
We can hardly hear you.
I'm just acting like Max Headroom.
Do you have a Diet Pepsi?
Yeah, exactly. You hear me okay now?
Yeah, we can. So Lydia says to you, she wants to know, how do you connect to your dog like you talk about?
Well, that I have to untrain the human mind to be more dog-like. You have it with primal injury. You have the lizard part of the brain, as we know. You have the cerebellum. You have these different function areas, which, by the way, the cerebellum is not just uh, low center functions. Uh, there's actually high level thoughts and emotions within the cerebellum as well, which makes sense because animals that are more primal and have less of the cerebral cortex, they're still able to function with more than just survival emotions. Um, but if you return to, I feel like all I do is teach people about to join nature again and be in, because if you are constantly worried about the future or worried about the past or planning this, planning that, you're not in reality.
When was the last time? I know it's getting winter time up here in the northern hemisphere. We got people joining us from all over the place, but I encourage all of our listeners to get out there, lay down, and look at the clouds.
Yeah.
Get in that mindset. See what Nelson is talking about. We forget this stuff. We have so many things that are drawing our attention and that leave energetic residue in our brain that we can't really be present sometimes. We've lost that ability, and it's very important to be present.
Yeah, even I find for myself, like this is a lot of the stuff that I have learned as I have gone through Nelson's courses through the Institute, his 3-day workshop, the 9-day shadow program workshop, the human psychology course, level 3. All of this is kind of a building process, and it takes time to really let some of this stuff sink in. But I think one of the overall things that I have gained from going through these courses and learning these things from Nelson and these courses is being present in the moment, and how challenging even today, like even though I know how to do it and how to get there, it's so easy to be carried away by the to-do lists and the stresses of life and work and what's going on. And I really can see, now that I have experienced it, I can see how it affects the dogs. I can see when I'm working with a dog and I am not being present, and I am caught up in what's going to happen later today or next week or all of the things that I have to do. And the dogs feel that because mentally I'm just in 100 different places. But the beautiful moments when I do get to really come down and be present in this moment and look at the clouds or sit with my dog, as Nelson, I think it was in the 3-day workshop, relationship-based behavior modification, or RBBM as it's called, um, I had flashbacks to when I was a kid with my first golden retriever that I did agility training with. He was an outdoor dog because my brothers have allergies, so he couldn't be in the house because my brothers would have asthma attacks. So I would spend a lot of time outside with my dog as a teenager because I wanted to be with my dog. And we had built them this awesome, he had this awesome dog house that was massive and insulated and had this really cool roof. And I would sit inside the dog house with my dog for hours and just hang out with my dog. And that is the kind of stuff that, you know, not that you need to sit in the doghouse with your dog, but like that's the kind of connection that we're going for. Is I'm just being with my dog.
Most husbands are used to that.
Yeah. Well, just be present with your dog, man. And I remember sometimes Nelson gets these feral dogs, and he's taught me too. I have a couple dogs that I'm rehabbing that are super primal. And just connect with that dog, man, and just to be like, just to sit there and just nothing else but you and that dog. And you're going to find out how much of a monkey mind you have when that happens. You know, your mind, like I said, it has a mind of its own. And when you start to do this, your mind is not going to like it at first. It's going to be like, what are you doing, man? We need to do this. We need to do that. This doesn't make any sense. We got so much crap to do, you know, and you need to be aware of that and know that that isn't you. That's an autonomic kind of response. And we need to acknowledge it and say, yes, I see that I am a little anxious here, but I am going to keep my eye on the big prize, which is making a connection with this animal. And pretty soon that brain comfort zone will start expanding the more that you work with it. And remember, 28 to 45 days, right? That's an average neural regrowth of our neurons. We all have certain parts of our bodies that are just the same. And just like Nelson was talking about the brain, how we have the reptilian complex, the limbic system, and that's where it stops in the mammals, is a mammalian brain. But we humans have a prefrontal cortex or a new cortex. And you know, the brain works on making these connections, and to really form that super highway of information connectivity takes about 28 to 45 days. And so we keep our eye on the big prize, but repetition's the mother of learning. We keep that up, as well as just the time.
Yep.
Time is so important. You're in a good space now, Nelson. You're all clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I'm further out away from all the overpasses that were blocking the signal. So
there you go. I mean, and that's it. It's just being, and no expectations too. And man, and I've seen you work that dog. I've seen you work that Mal pit that was going after the toys and being really rude. Once the human would grab the toy, the dog was demanding it back and jumping out and nailing him. And the mom had a bunch of bruises on her lower arm from when the dog connected with her. And it was pretty cool to watch you, you know, show that dog that wasn't a good idea to challenge a human like that. It was fluid and flowing, and all you did was step forward.
Taking space, man. That's such a key thing that I have learned.
What's that, Cheryl?
Maintaining your space and claiming space is so huge for the dog's world.
Well, and so what are you guys building now? Like, that's the other thing that I want people to know about. And how the heck can they get a hold of you? You guys have a website out. You're building an institute where people can come. You do a 3-day workshop, but you do a much more intensive 9-day program there as well.
well, we've developed an entire of courses. The RBBM workshop. RBBM is relationship-based behavior modification. It's what I have named what I do and what I've developed over however many decades. And it's a philosophy of how to reach dogs and rehabilitate them. once I can connect with the dog, it will do anything for me that I ask of it, not tell of it, because it wants to. So it's a different type of philosophy than what's generally out there. There are bits and pieces of that out in the training and behavior world, but not to the level that, what I've found over the years is you can reduce conflict to almost nothing by having the right signals, because any animal, its size over anything else, wants to survive, and survives in conflict or having an advantage. If you become predator, they become difference in the mindset and intent. So to answer your question is, the course is developed. RBBM is the 3-day workshop. I travel all over the world to teach people. That's what I consider course number 1. It's the introduction to that universe. And then we have 4 more courses in a row that are a 9-day, which Cheryl mentioned, and I don't consider the shadow program, because you're not following me. I'm following you and picking on you.
Reverse shadow program.
Yeah,
Reverse shadow.
Reverse shadow, exactly. And then we have an 8-day course, which is human and canine psychology, the real stuff, including how the brain works, the parts of the brain, how you deal with yourself, with your clients, with dogs, how dogs deal with different things, and the vet medical part of it, which is a 3-day segment of that 8-day. And it's taught by my ER vet, who is an incredible instructor. And it's not a first aid course. It goes into depth in everything, a behaviorist or even just a dog owner. I don't mean just, even a dog owner take away on what do I win, etc. Oh, you got me still?
Yeah, we still got you, but you were breaking up just a little bit. But
Okay.
that's it. What's the website, you guys?
Website is. Oh, go ahead.
It's chrinstitute.com. Stands for Canine Human Relationship Institute.com.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure to put that CHR Institute. Gonna make sure. .com. Is this it right here? CHR Institute. You see it on the screen there?
I can't see it on the screen, but
CHR Institute. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I'm going to put it down here as well.
Yep.
So we've got 5 courses in a row, which are in sequence, that people can take. That's called the certificate series. But we have other side courses that anyone can take at any time. One is lost dog recovery. One is nose work for rehabilitation. One is actually working with severe case dogs. The other is learning environmental agility to help rehabilitate a dog. And then there's also an assault prevention course that goes with field expedient medical triage, human triage.
Wow.
And those are all necessarily want to know what the heck you're doing.
I would say, I've gone through all of the available courses so far, and they really do build upon itself. And I really think that one of the things I am appreciating about this institute as it's being built and evolving, the courses are being built, is it's really the Canine and Human Relationship Institute. And it's not just the canine to human relationship, it's also human to human relationship. And I have learned some powerful stuff about human psychology and human connection, and as well as the dog side of things. And I think it's that sort of holistic approach of, we really do need to be learning about the human side of things just as much as we need to be learning about the canine side of things, and how worlds are being blended together. So this institute is something that I've never seen before. So I'm really impressed with the people that have been putting it through.
Well, you have a human doctor on staff too, a psychologist as well.
Yeah, Christine.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
Christine Kohler, as well as Dr. Sarah Cagle, who's the vet. She's the emergency room vet. So we've got some pretty powerful people.
very
Beautiful.
qualified people, and not just qualified, but who they are as individuals. Easy to connect with. You just feel like they're truly there to help you and they care about you. They really do care. And that's something for me that when I'm learning from someone, I want to feel like I can connect with them. And both of them, Christine and Sarah, it was very easy to get comfortable with them very quickly. And
They're
that was
they're honest and open people, and I am quite honored that they want to be a part of the institute because they're not just very knowledgeable in their areas, but they're excellent instructors. Excellent instructors, and that some people know stuff, some people can do it, but to instruct, that's a different level.
Yeah, know it so well that you can teach it.
And be able to relate to humans.
Yeah. Rapport is power, man. Rapport is power in any relationship with human, dog, anything. And that rapport, takes understanding and takes it's a give and take,
Yes. Yep.
That's it. Well, Nelson, I think we're gonna let you go, man, and be careful driving on
Okay.
the road. And thank you so much for joining us. If you guys, check out the chrinstitute.com and sign up for his course. If you are a dog trainer or in the industry at all, and you haven't taken any of his courses, prepare to get your mind blown. And not only that, I've taken it a couple times. And the
yes.
second time, I learned just as much as I did the first time, man. And not only that, but I connected with my little dog Ash in a way that I've never connected before with the dog in split seconds, man. And not only that, but just humble yourself and do the exercises without knowing that you know it already. To go into this with an open mind and just pretend like you are at the beginning, just like Nelson says, we're always at the beginning here.
Yeah.
And Tosh from New Zealand says, together is better. And I couldn't say it more. So
Yep.
anything
Hey,
you want to sign off with, Nelson?
Tell them to Australia this coming, well, their winter, I guess, July. I've got 2 workshops in Australia, one in Sydney, one in Melbourne in July.
Oh my goodness.
So there you go.
There you go. Next summer, or next summer for us, next winter in July. You're going to go down there in July, huh? Instead of going down there now. And
Yeah, we've conducted the RBBM workshop in some pretty cold situations with snow on the ground, sleet running, and stuff like that. People still have a blast.
yeah.
The dogs don't mind the weather. So if the dogs don't mind the weather, suck it up, crybaby. Get up.
Awesome, man. As always, good talking to you, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, all right. See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
There he is, folks. Yeah, you guys need to be there. If you're in Australia down south, good. And sorry, I was just waving to Nelson in the lobby there. Then you definitely need to do this, and it's amazing. I mean, go with like you're learning because there's so much stuff that's covered, even in the 3-day relationship-based behavior modification. Just it's crucial, and it's pivotal information that's going to help you connect with your clients and also connect with the dogs that really need your help.
Yeah, and one of the things, because I've done the relationship-based behavior modification workshop twice as well. And the first time I was like literally mind blown. The second time I kind of knew what we were going to be covering, but I still got great bits and pieces throughout it. And it's just one of the things I told, clients and friends who were taking it was like, the more open you can be to it, the more you're going to get out of it. and not being afraid to, because some of the exercises he has you do, you can feel embarrassed, you can feel awkward, you can feel like, oh my God, everybody's watching me do this. Like, but if you just let that go, that's when you're going to get those connection moments. And there were some pretty powerful moments for me and my personal dog. I mean, I thought Duke, my Dobie, I mean, we're like this, he's my boy. But the first time I went through RBBM and we did the follow the dog exercise, oh my gosh, I saw my dog.
That was here at the property, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was at your property. Yeah, that was the first time that I had truly seen my dog. It was mind blowing, and I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like once you experience it, you get it.
It's esoteric. It's esoteric. It's between you and the relationship with your animal. I mean, but it's magic, man. When you really make the connection and you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know.
And one of the cool things about the philosophies that Nelson teaches is no matter what type of a trainer you are, what methods or tools you use, these are things that are foundational to any approach, anything you use working with dogs. And it's not like, okay, you're going to have to give up your e-collars now. Like I still use e-collars when I train dogs, but I use them a little differently now, or I do additional things in pairing with that now. You're not going to have to give up your treats or your food if you don't want to. It's really about just having those connections with the dogs. And I think that's something that certain, like in some workshops and things that I had been to, it's like, well, this is the method, this is how we use this stuff, and you can't pair it with anything else. This is how it is. And so I really appreciate that about these philosophies is it can go with anything. Really, like if you really have it as that foundational piece, it blends really seamlessly with a lot of approaches. So anyone can take it and get valuable information and potentially life-changing information from it. But you do have to be open to it, because like you were saying, if you go in there with the like, well, I already have my approach and my methods and I know what I'm talking about, you're probably not going to get a whole lot from it.
Well, the reason I say that is because I saw people at his workshop like that. And I watched and I talked to Nelson about it, and Nelson was like, dude, I wish that they would just believe me and work through this, because it was a couple more ego-driven trainers that think that they knew it all, and they just were coming and like it said, some of this stuff could be a little vulnerable. You're a little vulnerable with the activities that we do, and and if you're a big machismo guy or a big machisma girl, I don't know, if it's
you have to be about the guys, I mean, there are those stereotypes of, oh, guys are, more macho or this way or whatever, but like women have the same thing sometimes, or even on the flip side where we're too emotional. And it's finding that balance of what the dog needs and not what we think it needs or what we need in our interactions with the dogs. And that's huge too, because many times, I can kind of go back in my mind's eye and like remember some of the feelings that I would feel when I was working with dogs about like needing to be in control and needing to be, making sure the dog listens to everything I say. When I give a command, they must listen. And, I still expect my dogs to listen and pay attention, but it's more of a relationship. And like Nelson said, it's asking versus commanding. And it doesn't mean that my dogs are walking all over me. It's just that I have a respect for them and they have a respect for me because we have that relationship dynamic. And so it's just being willing to open up that mindset, because it's so easy to get stuck in a technique or a method where you are in control and it's A plus B equals C every time. And, it's very black and white. And there can be a lot of gray areas in behavior modification and training. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to sit in the gray area. So
sometimes there's confusion, concepts being fused, and that's why I take it twice, and I'll take it again, man. I mean, and not only that, but we're going to do a live stream with Nelson where we just go through RBBM stuff, and just so people can get an idea, in a couple hours of the information that we cover in 3 days. And this is just a couple hours. And if we're going to cover this amount in a couple hours, just imagine what you're going to receive in 3 days. And, I mean,
awesome.
it's a wonderful thing. Now, tell us about Take the Lead. How do people get a hold of you?
So my website is taketheleaddogtraining.com. And that's the best way to get a hold of me, through there. So if I always tell people, if you're a potential new client, how it usually works is you book an evaluation phone call with me, and you can do that through the website. And that's our first meeting, is we have a phone call and talk a little bit more in depth about what's going on with your dog, and what your training goals are, what your dog needs help with. And from there, we can kind of set a training game plan, and then we move forward from that point. So that's pretty much how that works. And I primarily work with reactive and aggressive dogs. That's just kind of what's coming to me now with word of mouth. It kind of, evolved into that. I used to do primarily obedience training, and not for competition, but just for pet dogs and working on minor behavioral issues. But as my skill set evolved, my client base evolved as well, and started getting more challenging cases. And I really enjoy the challenge of that, and the reward that comes from taking a dog that is literally keeping their family captive at home to the point where they have freedom, not only the dog, but the people as well. And we're keeping dogs in homes, and we're keeping dogs alive. And it's such a rewarding process, and I really am enjoying what I do. I'm very passionate about it. So I don't know if that
it takes constant that learning and stuff to make you who you are today. And as you strive forward, with the human canine or the Canine Human Institute Relationship Institute, then it's just going to take it that much further. Your understanding, but it's understanding through experience, gnosis, right? Knowledge through experience is a totally different ball game than just reading about something, or just having a theory about it, right? You've actually lived the life. You've blood, sweat, and tears, man. I mean, that's what it takes. And there's no substitution for time as well.
Right. Yeah, and that you're saying that hands-on experience of, the last couple of years I've been doing a lot of board and trains. And the experience of living with these difficult dogs was a big eye-opener for me. Whereas before, I had primarily done home visits, and I had a good knowledge base. But boy, going from that to living with these dogs, my knowledge base just expanded exponentially. And so that was an eye-opener for me too. Like the day in, the day out, every interaction, living with the dogs. I have a lot more of an understanding what my clients go through now. So when I do have those one-on-one lessons, I get it.
You literally put your feet in their shoes and take their dog, and you're like, what's up with the whining? Does he whine when like the little things that they're like, oh my gosh, you saw it. You're like, okay, I saw it. Like, it just takes that time, because when a lot of times when you go to these people, the dog's just like, I'm good. I don't know what these people are talking about, man. How you doing? I love you.
I swear, every time someone comes over, the dog does this, but when you come, it doesn't happen. And it makes a difference.
Know, man. They know when you have experience, and just the way, dogs live in a world of split seconds, and there's ways that we can just come into a situation that tells that animal, if we're a little bit more knowledgeable about dogs than the average person, then sometimes the ones that aren't so knowledgeable can be looked at as a sucker. And that dog's just like, aha, I got their number. And it feels good for us to, address the dog, but just like, sometimes it gives them a false sense of entitlement, right?
And I can see that now, having gone through all of Nelson's courses, the knowledge base that it gave me, and the skill set and the new eyes that I have now when I look at dogs, and I can really see who a dog is in a very short amount of time. Boy, I'm seeing things now that I couldn't 2 years ago. And a dog that shows up, first lesson or in an evaluation, and I look at him, I'm like, oh, I see you. Like, I know who you are just by how you show up and present yourself. And I can see that dog assessing me. And it's so fascinating how, like, within a matter of 30 seconds, I can see that dog processing and going, oh, this chick gets it. So I'm going to be more or like them, if they're really confident or pushy, they might kind of come and test my space or whatnot, and they're testing to see how I'm going to respond to them coming into my space, and am I going to overreact, am I going to like let them walk all over me, and how does that go? And it's just been such a cool thing that I'm seeing all these little split-second moments like you were saying, and I have so much more knowledge or information to pull from now to see those things and to change how I show up with these dogs. And it's been really, really fascinating. So
I think that you said it. You see it with a totally different set of eyes and a totally different set of ears. And Tosh says that she's down in New Zealand. She says, I've always been fascinated by Nelson's more natural, instinctual approach. He just has a different way about him. God, just made my year knowing it's possible to learn from him. Saving. Hey, Tosh, too, if Nelson's a great guy, man. If you can't afford this stuff, I mean, reach out to him, see if you can volunteer at the event, or even if he'd offer a scholarship. We've done it before for people that are passionate. And so you save, yes. But if there's something that happens that you can't afford, reach out to him. And he'll make it happen. You know, the information is more important than the money, just like what he was saying. So I'm excited for you to meet him, and I look forward to meeting you someday too, Tosh. I want to go down to Australia. The crew from Australia at the IACP, man, I miss them. the sweaty Australians.
That's great.
So anything else you want to mention before we sign off? I thank you for your time today. This was great, Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I'm honored to be here. I wasn't sure if I would have anything very valuable or important to share that people would be interested in hearing, but I think, like you were saying, it's just kind of having conversations and sharing perspectives, and my passion is helping people and helping their dogs, and doing that through Take the Lead Dog Training, my company here, as well as my growing involvement in Nelson's Institute. And I think, if people have questions or are curious about anything that we've talked about or that they heard today, reach out to me, reach out to Nelson, reach out to Bill. This information is really valuable, and don't be shy about reaching out and asking questions or getting involved, because it's truly life-changing. So yeah, that's just, if you're open to it, it's totally worth the investment of time and even finances, because that's a part of it sometimes too, but worth the investment for sure.
Yeah. And the mentors, just like she was saying earlier, about just not about the dog mentor, but also think about getting into a business mentorship. We don't know what we don't know. We come into a lot of these new adventures with the old baggage, from not just us growing up, but also from our family and
what we're taught, what's modeled to us in our families and our communities. There's a lot to be learned about business, and a lot of us I know get into dog training because we like dogs and we have knowledge about dogs. It doesn't make us business experts. So hire somebody to help you with that. I mean, hiring mentors, it's worth the investment 10 times over, because what you're going to get, the residual effect from that is going to be so much more than what you initially put in. So
changing your mindset, so
yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, hold on, Cheryl. I'm going to say goodbye to you on the other side, but let's say goodbye to all of our people watching us. Thank you so much for watching. And feel free to hit that share button. Check out the chrinstitute.com. Take the Lead Dog Training. Reach out to myself, Cheryl, or Nelson if you have any questions about any of these courses. And Tosh says, thank you for your time, Cheryl. And Denise says, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you, everybody.
Bye.